This just confirmed what we all feared, and that is that Luisangel Acuna, like Francisco Alvarez, will be seen in a AAA Syracuse Met uniform as he was sent down. We also have multiple New York Met updates, including Frankie Montas and an injury update on him. He is back. He is healthy, back from the 60-day IL, and he will be starting tonight against the Atlanta Braves in a pivotal matchup. As I mentioned in my video earlier on Francisco Alvarez, the Mets have dropped 9 out of their last 10 games and desperately need a victory, so they will be turning to Frankie Montas to try and get that. Is this really the right move? Is Montas healthy enough to pitch? We'll talk about that today. We'll also talk about why Acuna was sent down. We'll talk about his replacement and also a left-handed veteran pitcher that the New York Mets picked up. So plenty to go over, and it's only on Mets Digest. I'm your host today, Mike Duda, and you know me, I'm a stats guy. I like to start off with some statistics, and today's stat is that 72.1% of you that watch these videos are not subscribed. So please do me a favor, do us a favor here on Mets Digest, and hit that free subscribe button. That way we can bring content to you about the amazing. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and talk Luisangel Acuna. Here are his statistics on your screen now. Not the best 2025 regular season, but back in 2024, he was great. Came up for about the last month of the season, filled in for Francisco Lindor when he was dealing with a back problem, and honestly played up to close to Lindor-like status to keep the Mets alive for a postseason push. They ended up making the playoffs, and Acuna was a big piece in the 2024 playoffs. And then he came into 2025, and he kind of fell off after a great April. And we'll hear about this from Carlos Mendoza as well as a reporter, both of which talk about how Acuna was great in 2024 and had a great 2025 start in the month of April, but really just started to fall off in May and June, and that is part of the reason why the Mets ended up sending him down. Keep in mind, this is a guy that was ranked as high as number 3 in the New York Mets system and 38th overall in Major League Baseball in terms of prospect list, and he was a guy that the Mets did a one-for-one deal with Max Scherzer for. The Mets sent over Max Scherzer to the Texas Rangers for Luisangel Acuna, and in fact, they paid off the rest of a big Max Scherzer contract just so they could have Acuna, and they ended up sending him down. So let's go ahead and let's hear from the experts. Why exactly did the Mets do this? Well, we'll hear from John Flanagan today of SNY. He says, quote, Mendoza stated that decision simply came down to the youngster's playing time. Acuna served a significant role for this club earlier this season, but with his production dipping off and others getting healthy, he ultimately saw his time decrease significantly. Prior to his demotion, Acuna logged just 18 plate appearances this month. Now, admittedly, I'm a little bit 50-50 on this decision. At first, I really thought it was a bad move. I said, well, when we look at the replacement, which we'll take a look at in just a little bit, he's not that much of an increase over Acuna. I don't really know why the Mets did it, but then hearing from the skip, which we'll hear from in just a little bit, I kind of realized, yeah, this might be the right move because it's similar to what they're doing with Francisco Alvarez, a former top prospect who just really wasn't performing of late, and they end up sending him down, let him go to the minors, try and figure it out offensively. And in Acuna's case, it's not defensively. That's really just Alvarez's case. Go ahead and check out that video if you haven't already, because there's a lot of similarities between the two. But for Acuna, it's really just figure it out with the stick down in the minor leagues, and then hopefully come up and be big in a postseason push. But the 18 plate appearances is most certainly a misleading statistic. The way the Mets have used Acuna, specifically in the month of May and June, has been a late defensive and base running replacement. The 7th inning, the 8th inning, the 9th inning, he'll come in for a guy who's a little bit slower, usually the catching position, and then he'll come in on the base pass, he'll come in for defense, and he'll try and help win the Mets a ball game. We'll hear a little bit of that from Mendoza as well going forward, but these 18 plate appearances are just misleading because Acuna has played in 12 games this year. He just doesn't really get to the plate because in 4 of those games he took no at-bats, and in 4 more of those games he only took 1 at-bat. So 8 out of his 12 games that he's played this year, he has a combined 4 ABs. So let's go ahead and hear from the skip. What does Carlos Mendoza have to say? He said, quote, he had a good April, and he most certainly had a good April. He was NL Rookie of the Month. He was getting consistent time and helped us win a lot of games. Then it was a combination of other guys producing, and he became that role guy that helped us win a lot of games with his versatility, his base running. He was still impacting games. But it got to a point now where it's getting difficult to find him playing time, and for his development and where we're at in the regular season, what we want to see is for him to get regular at bats and play him every day, because it's hard for us to judge him right now. Now, with that good April, I definitely agree with Mendoza. That was another reason why I didn't want Acuna to get sent down. But when you look at that word development, I completely agree. I touched upon this just a little bit ago, but I think this is the right move, because you send Acuna down, you let him figure it out offensively. Give him about a month, maybe a little bit more than a month, to figure it out with the stick. Hopefully down in AAA, he has like a 300 average, 850 plus OPS, is still stealing bases at a great clip. He finds that power a little bit and continues to play good defense and continues to play a bunch of different positions and be a versatile player. And then he comes up in hopefully late July, maybe early August, and then he is back and can help the Mets make a great postseason run. And hopefully he can be a good player in the postseason like he was back in 2024. So now that I've given you my opinion about Acuna and how I actually agree with this demotion, at least for the time being, just make it short, about a month is all that he needs. Let's go ahead and take a look at his replacement. And you might recognize this replacement from his Baseball Reference. This is Travis Jankowski, a guy who spent a good portion of 2022 with the New York Mets. He is the guy that's going to replace Acuna because he is a very similar player, a good defender and someone who is really, really fast and can get a lot of production as a base runner. Not necessarily with the stick, although he is a plus in terms of the bat compared to Acuna this season. Here in 2025, Jankowski is hitting a 258, 294, 323, good for a 617 OPS and a 76 OPS plus. Just 2 home runs. They were both solo shots, so 2 RBIs in 31 ABs, 2 stolen bases, and was not caught stealing in 14 games. So better statistics overall than Acuna. And although the stolen bases are down, you have to keep in mind he played a lot less games than Luisangel Acuna. Of course, he was a former Met, so let's take a look at his time in Flushing previously. 167, 286, 167. Yes, no extra base hits when he was with the Mets. Good for a 452 OPS and a putrid 35 OPS plus. 3 stolen bases, was not caught stealing in 54 ABs. But where you get a best sense from a player is his 162 average. That is a 236, 318, 305 for Travis Jankowski. Good for a 623 OPS and a 75 OPS plus. 3 home runs per 162 games, 23 RBIs, and the stolen bases are definitely there at 24, and is only caught stealing 6 times per 162. Good for an 0.9 WAR per 162 games played. That has helped him accumulate a 4.1 WAR over his 11 seasons. So let's bring up a veteran right now, and a guy again who's going to be a good player defensively and definitely a speed demon on the base paths. Now, this is another reason why I originally disagreed with the move. If you take a look at the advanced metrics here from Travis Jankowski, they are significantly worse than Luisangel Acuna, basically in every single category. These are not good whatsoever, unfortunately. Maybe besides the chase rate. I think the chase rate is solid and his range is okay. But when you look at Acuna basically clears him in everything but that chase rate. And although these are not good by any means for Luisangel Acuna here in 2025 with the advanced metrics, they are definitely better, including the fielding and the base running, than Travis Jankowski. So again, this was one of the reasons why I disagreed originally with the move to send down Acuna for Travis Jankowski. But when you take a look at the counting statistics, that would definitely back it up. Here are the counting statistics for Jankowski compared to Luisangel Acuna this season. Right now, you get a better bat out of Jankowski. And again, for development purposes, I think 1 month is great for Acuna to stay in the minor leagues and really get that stick back, because he was a top prospect and definitely can be someone that hits really well in a New York Met uniform. Now, we did mention a veteran left-handed pitcher that was signed. We'll go over that in just 1 second, as the corresponding move was Tyler Zuber was sent down to AAA to make room for this guy, veteran left-handed pitcher Richard Lovelady. Now, for the first 6 seasons of his MLB career, Lovelady went by his real first name of Richard, but ever since he signed with the Mets, he now wants to be referred to by his nickname of Dicky, which I think is pretty interesting and honestly pretty funny. But Lovelady was available on the open market last week after opting out of a minor league deal with Minnesota, and the Mets decided to pick him up yesterday. In AAA for the Twins, he had a 2.61 ERA and a 1.09 WHIP in 19 games played. So definitely a solid 2025 in the minors, but his big league numbers are not as positive. A 5.26 ERA, 1.347 WHIP, 8.7 hits per 9, 1.1 home runs per 9, and a 2.4 strikeout to walk ratio over his career. In 2025, it unfortunately has been even worse. He got credited with a loss in only 2 games pitched and only 1 2/3 innings pitched, with a 21.60 ERA and a 2.4 WHIP. But the skip Carlos Mendoza has seen him pitch before, and he's actually pretty positive about it. The skip says, quote, "I've seen him pitch before while with Kansas City. He's a lefty from the low slot with the sinker, the slider, and he's got a sweeper too." Now, left-handers are absolutely deadly when they have a weird motion or a funky arm slot, so that low arm slot will hopefully do wonders for Lovelady. To continue with the quote, Mendy says he's very tough left on left. You just add another weapon out of the bullpen. There we can mix and match. So hopefully this solves a problem of the bullpen for the Mets, as again, the Mets have been on such a skid as of late. This also helps to get a left-hander and a veteran left-hander in that bullpen until Brooks Raley is indeed healthy. So hopefully we can get some good production out of Lovelady as a left-handed veteran, of course with this weird arm slot that will hopefully throw off some batters. But the most important thing that we have to get to is Frankie Montas. As you see on your screen here, these are the roster moves that allowed Montas to be on this active pro roster. Reinstated from the 60-day IL and starts tonight against the Atlanta Braves. Chris Davinsky optioned to AAA following last night's game, and Jesse Winker was transferred to the 60-day IL. Now, don't be concerned about Winker. This is no negative news on his injury front. It's more of a logistics thing that allows him to be on the active roster, that being Montas, and allows him to pitch tonight on the 40-man and the active roster. So let's go ahead and take a look at what the experts have to say about how Montas is feeling and how he's been doing. Flanagan of SNY says, quote, "Frankie Montas is officially set to make his Mets debut on Tuesday night. The veteran right-hander has been sidelined since early in spring training due to a lat injury. Things didn't go quite well for him during his minor league rehab assignment. He allowed 8 homers and pitched to a 12.05 ERA and 2.14 WHIP over 6 appearances between High A and AAA. So definitely not that good. But the skip Carlos Mendoza is positive. He says, quote, "He's someone when we signed him, we thought he's going to be a big part of this rotation. I remember when we faced him in the wild card series last year, he was pretty nasty. The way the ball was coming out and the way he was using all of his pitches, I've seen him pitch for a lot of years at this level and have a lot of success. So the expectation is for him to go out there and to compete and to give us a chance to win a baseball game each and every time he takes the ball starting tomorrow." Now, of course, tomorrow meaning today. So let's go ahead and take a look at Montas' stats so far in his career. He is 44-46, just below 500 in 160 games pitched, 129 starts, 4.09 ERA and a 1.31 WHIP. Those are the two most important stats to look at. And honestly, I would never be excited for a guy that's got a career above 4 ERA, but I am so happy to have Frankie Montas back in this rotation right now because we no longer have to bring up spot starters and have question marks as this 5th guy in the rotation. It is solidified as Montas. And now, given that he's on a 2-year, $34 million contract, we can hope that he actually performs and he does his job and helps the Mets to win some ball games and bring back this starting pitching that was so dominant to begin the season. So let's go Frankie Montas. Plenty that we went over today here on Mets Digest. Let me know what you think. Do you agree with the Mets sending down Luisangel Acuna? You like Travis Jankowski? What do you think about Dicky Lovelady? And will Frankie Montas actually pan out? Is he really healthy enough and ready to go for MLB starts? Let me know your opinions. Drop them down below in the comment section. If you're on the East Coast and if you're in the New York area, stay cool. I know it's really hot out. Thank you so much as always for watching. And let's go Mets.